Welcome to this explainer. Let's just jump right in today because we are unraveling one of the absolute most frustrating mysteries of human behavior. I want you to picture this scene with me for a second. Imagine a 16-year-old kid named Thomas. We're going to visualize him living in this vibrant, highly detailed, tactile claymation world. So Tomas is sitting on the edge of his bed, and right in front of him is this gorgeous setup of music gear. We're talking keyboards, guitars, a microphone. He can see the exact life he wants, the music he's dying to create, the person he really knows he's meant to become. I mean, it's right there. But he just stares at it. He's completely, utterly unable to start. His arm reaches out, hovers for a second, and then he just pulls it back. Have you ever been Tomas?
Seriously, have you ever sat down to work on a dream you genuinely care about, only to feel instantly paralyzed by what feels like this massive invisible wall? I guarantee that hits home for almost everyone watching. It is so maddening. You tell yourself, oh, I'll do it next week, or next month when things settle down, or when I finally feel ready. But the dream just stays exactly where it's always been, close enough to see, but just way too far to actually touch. And we tend to judge ourselves so harshly for this. But the truth we uncovered in our source material today? It's incredibly liberating. Listen, Thomas isn't lazy. You aren't lazy. You're not lacking discipline or willpower. What you're actually experiencing is a highly efficient, incredibly powerful biological mechanism that is running quietly underneath literally everything you think.
Okay, let's dive into this with Section 1, the dream and the dread.
This is really about that aching distance between the life Tomas visualizes, the finished album, that amazing creative fulfillment, and the reality of him just hitting the snooze button or staring blankly at his wall. We have to understand why that gap exists, and why traditional advice like just try harder or build your willpower absolutely 100% fails to close it. Based on some absolutely fascinating research by Piers Steele, it all comes down to a really stark comparison. Let's look at the dream first. A dream is massive, right? It's far away, it's incredibly uncertain, and the payoff might be years down the road with literally no guarantee of success. Now compare that to the distraction. Imagine Tomas's little claymation hand holding his smartphone. The phone is small, it's close, it's certain. It offers this immediate guaranteed hit of dopamine. Steele showed that the more you doubt you can do something, and the further away the reward is, the more likely you are to just choose immediate comfort. It's not a fair fight. Honestly, it's not even a contest.
Which brings us to Section 2, two minds in one skull.
If we literally zoom right inside Tomas's claymation mind, we find two entirely separate forces fighting for control over his actions. Imagine two literal clay characters sharing one skull. And the critical thing to understand here is that they absolutely do not want the same thing. On the left, we have the higher mind. Scientifically speaking, this is your prefrontal cortex. This is the bright, visionary part of Toma. It lifts its eyes, it creates 5-year plans, it imagines holding that finished album, and it says, yes, this is who we are going to become. It has your true ultimate good at heart. But on the right, lurking right underneath all of that, is the old machine. This part is ancient. And guess what? It doesn't care about your 5-year plan. It has absolutely no interest in your music, your novel, or your fitness goals. It has one single, solitary job: to keep you safe. It is constantly scanning for danger, discomfort, or anything new and unproven. It solely, exclusively craves safety, comfort, and immediate relief.
But here is the absolute kicker. The old machine is faster. Way faster. Remember, it was running the show for millions of years before the higher mind ever even evolved. So when these two disagree, and believe me, they disagree constantly when you try to do anything hard, the old machine wins. Your higher mind says, all right, today we write the song, but before you can even finish forming that thought, the old machine chimes in and replies, no, that feels hard. What if we fail? Hey, look at your phone instead. And before your higher mind can even protest, boom, you are scrolling. The old machine hands Thomas his phone and literally lets him believe it was his own choice.
Moving right along to Section 3, procrastination is an emotion.
Now this brings us to a massive paradigm shift. If you take away just one single thing from this explainer, let it be this groundbreaking science, because it completely redefines why we put things off. It's going to rewrite everything you thought you knew about your own perceived laziness. Researcher Tim Pikeel, who spent over 20 years, 2 decades, studying why people put off what matters to them, states this plainly. Procrastination is not a time management problem. It is an emotional problem. Wow. Think about how freeing that is. You are not bad at scheduling. You aren't disorganized or somehow broken. You avoid the task not because you can't fit it into your day, but because doing it makes you feel something uncomfortable. You are simply avoiding an uncomfortable feeling, and that ancient machine inside you will do absolutely anything to make that feeling stop.
But let's pause. What actually is an emotion? We talk about our feelings as though they're these enormous, terrifying monsters. They aren't. An emotion is simply a vibration. It's just a physical sensation happening in your body. Maybe a tightness in your chest, shallow breathing, or that cold flutter in your stomach. And if you just let it sit there, it passes, very much like weather moving across the sky. But, and here is the fatal error, the old machine doesn't know it's just weather. So when Tomas sits at his keyboard and his chest gets all tight with anxiety, the old machine interprets that physical vibration as a literal life or death threat, and it just starts screaming at him to escape.
And giving in to that escape triggers a really cruel trap, the avoidance loop. Let's walk through this step by step because it's super important. Step 1, Tomas goes to play a chord, and the dread rises, the fear of being seen, the fear of failing. Step 2, the old machine tosses up a thought that sounds so reasonable you wouldn't even suspect it. It says, hey, let me just tidy my room first. He chooses the small distraction. Step 3, he stands up to clean, that internal pressure releases, and he feels this temporary wave of relief. Much better. But step 4 is the absolute horror of it. The old machine keeps score. It actually updates his core identity. It says, okay, we avoided the hard thing. We must not be the kind of person who follows through. So every single time he tidies up instead of writing music, that loop tightens, and his identity secretly updates to failure.
All right, section 4. Sprint into the dread.
So, the million-dollar question, how do we break the loop? If willpower doesn't work, and if the old machine is basically a supercomputer that's way faster than us, what is the single move that defeats it? Well, the first thing you have to accept is a pretty harsh truth. The fear will never, ever lift on its own. If you're sitting around waiting for the dread to magically clear, waiting for total certainty to arrive before you begin, you are going to wait forever. Why? Because the old machine is intentionally generating that fear for the exact purpose of keeping you from moving. Our source puts this so beautifully. Waiting for the fear to go away before you act is exactly like waiting for a guard to leave his post before you walk past him, when keeping you right there in place is the literal only reason he's there.
So here is the exact move you need to make. We call this the sprint playbook. Step 1, when that dread rises up, don't fight it. Name it out loud. Literally say, this is dread. Step 2, accept that the road is full of fear. You don't wait for the road to clear, you just accept, okay, I'm going to be running with the fear today. Step 3, take the first step anyway. Imagine our claymation Tomas again. He sits down, his chest tightens, every single nerve in his body is screaming no. But instead of getting up to clean his room, he says, I feel the dread, and I am going to play anyway. And he picks up his instrument. The secret, guys, is not the absence of dread. It is taking action right in the very presence of dread.
Which leads us nicely to our final part, section 5. The piece comes after.
Imagine Tomas has finally done it. He strikes that first chord. He's actually playing, and that tense, rigid clay environment all around him slowly begins to soften, transforming into this peaceful, flowing state. Something really profound happens the very first time you successfully move against that dread. Why is taking action so transformative? Because you are finally feeding the old machine undeniable new evidence. For years, the old evidence was, we avoid hard things, and avoiding means safety. But today, Tomas played the music, so the new evidence forces the machine to record, we felt the fear and moved anyway. And hey, nothing terrible happened. Taking that step literally shatters the old lie. It proves to your own brain that you actually are the kind of person who follows through.
And this shift ties directly into our identity. The teacher Neville stated this brilliantly. The state you most often return to becomes your dwelling place. What does that mean for us? It means that the thought, I am a failure or I am a procrastinator, was never actually a permanent fact about Tomas. It was just a room. It was a dwelling place he just kept returning to over and over until he literally mistook the walls for his own skin. But by taking action despite the fear, Tomas is finally walking out of that old room, and he's quietly starting to build a brand new one.
To really cement this idea, our source material recalls the ancient parable of the buried treasure. It goes like this. A master leaves treasure with 3 of his servants. 2 of them risk the treasure, they work it, and they multiply it. But the 3rd servant is terrified. Out of pure fear, he buries his treasure in a field, just to keep it perfectly safe. The lesson here is so incredibly profound. The dream in your heart, that is the treasure. And your old machine whispers, bury it. Keep it unstarted so you can't possibly fail. But hiding a dream destroys it just as surely as failing would. A buried dream is completely, totally lost.
The people who succeed aren't fearless. They just absolutely refuse to put their treasure in the ground.
So the huge, crucial point we arrive at today is this absolute truth. Peace does not come before you act. Peace comes after you have acted. We've had it totally backwards our entire lives. We sit around and wait to feel calm and ready to begin. But the readiness actually lives on the far side of that first step. The calling, to write, to build, to sing, to start the business, that comes first. The peace, that's just the reward that arrives afterward for actually obeying the calling. You have to be willing to step into the dark first.
So I want to end this explainer with a really powerful question for you to reflect on today. Which room are you dwelling in right now? And what dream are you burying just to stay comfortable? Tomorrow morning, your alarm is going to go off. Your old machine is going to desperately reach for the snooze button and flood your entire body with dread. Do not wait for it to pass. Name it, accept it, and take that one single step toward your dream while your hands are literally still shaking. Let that action be your proof. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I seriously challenge you, sprint into your dread today.